welcome back, my dear readers. We are here with the sixth episode of Adventures of Tom Sawyer. You must be remembering that in the last part, what we did that Tom had gone to forest, and there he pretended to uh, die like a hero, and when he fell on a nettle. Nettle is a kind of plant with the certain thorns. So when he fell on a nettle, he had to spring up again in a haste. Means जल्दी से एकदम से उठ जाना पड़ा because उसको कांटे चुभ गए. After that, you must be remembering that in the previous chapter, Tom and Huckleberry Finn, they had planned to meet at a secret place. So now, Murder in the Graveyard. The title only makes you excited to know what adventure is there in the title. So let's see. So Tom and Sid were sent off to a sleep as usual at 9:30. So at 9:30 वो लोग सोने चल गए. Tom भी और Sid भी. Tom lay in bed waiting for Huck's signal. So now Tom had to go to a secret place with Huck. So he was waiting for his signal when he heard his neighbor throw an empty bottle and yell, "Scat!" He realized it was Huck mewing like a cat. So when the neighbor of Tom, when he threw an empty bottle and cried, "It's Cat!" he realized that it was only Huck who was mewing like a cat, and the neighbor was afraid and he was throwing a bottle to let the cat away. Now in a trice means very quickly, he dressed himself and jumped out of the window onto the roof of the wooden shed and down to the ground. So very soon he dressed himself and jumped out of the window to the ground. Huckleberry Finn was there with his dead cat. So Huckleberry Finn was having his dead cat and he was there. They had planned to swing it over a grave to see if it cured warts. So now they had a planning to go to graveyard, and there they will swing this cat on the grave to see if it cured warts. क्या ये मस्से ठीक करता है? So the graveyard was on a hill and about 1.5 miles from the village. So the distance was too long. It was about 1 mile away and a half also. So grass and weeds grew over the whole place, and some of the old graves were sunken in so deep that their tombstones could not be seen. So the scene of the graveyard, like there were many the big grass and weeds. Weeds are unwanted plants. They grew over the whole place. सारी जगह पर plants उगे हुए थे. And some of the old graves, जो पुरानी graves थी, graves, समाधियाँ like ऐसे होती हैं. So which they were इतनी नीचे मिट्टी के अंदर दब चुकी थी that their tombstones, you might be knowing these tombstones, you can see these tombstones. So even they were not visible. So now after reaching there, you can see their conversation. "Hucky, do you think the dead people like our being here?" So now they are talking about that dead people. "Do you think are they here? I wish I knew." काश कि मुझे पता होता कि वहाँ होते हैं, वो यहाँ होते हैं कि नहीं. So then we come to the next page. Here, suddenly, sound of voices could be heard from the far end of the graveyard. The boys clung together in fear. Tom seized Huck's hand and said, so एकदम से क्या होता है कि कुछ voices आती हैं दूर से graveyard से, and the boys clung together in fear, एक दूसरे के साथ चिपक जाते हैं. And Tom seized Huck's hand. Huck का hand पकड़ लेता है Tom डर से और बोलता है, "Did you hear that sound? Tom, someone is coming. What we will do?" So कहता है कुछ कोई आ रहा है. Tom, कोई आ रहा है. तो let's see. And soon the boys could make out 3 figures approaching in the gloom, swinging a tin lantern. So very soon the boys could see 3 people coming towards them, and they were having a lantern also. Lantern क्या होती है? That is in olden times people used to carry lantern for light. So it is the devils, sure enough. "Tom, 3 of them. Can you pray?" So now Huckleberry is afraid and he's saying that they are the devils. भूत हैं ये. Let's pray. Don't be afraid, Huck. They won't hurt us. Now, he says, Tom says, don't be afraid. Now, they are humans. That's Muff Potter's voice and he's drunk as usual. So, this Huckleberry, he recognized that person, one of the persons, that was one of them was Muff Potter, and he was a drunkard of the village and he was drunk. Today also he was drunk. So the boys huddled together. Huddle means came closer together silently as they watched the three figures approach a grave. By the light of the lantern, they recognized the other two men as young Dr. Robinson and Injun Joe, a murderer. The other two people were also recognized by these two boys. One of them was Dr. Robinson and the other was Injun Joe. He was a murderer. Now, the men stood before a grave and began to open it with the shovels they had brought in a hand barrow. So these men, you can see in the picture also, these men stood before a grave. ग्रेव के पास में आकर खड़े हो गए and they began to open it. उसको open करने लगी with the shovel. Shovel क्या होते हैं? Spade like होता है. And they had brought it in a hand barrow, means एक बैग में लेकर आए थे. एक वुडन बैग होता है उसमें लेकर आए थे. After a while their shovel stuck a coffin and they pulled it out. And you can see that they are bringing out a coffin. The boys watched in horror as they pulled the body out of it and put it into the barrow. Now what they did? The boys were horrified, डरे हुए थे, because ये लोग क्या कर रहे थे? They pulled the body out of it. Coffin में से body निकाल रहे हैं. And they're putting it into the barrow. Barrow means जो wooden box वो लेकर आए थे जिसके अंदर spade थी, उसके अंदर उस body को डाल दिया. Then they tied it with a rope and covered it with a blanket. अब उसको बैरो को टाई कर दिया रोप से and they covered it with a cloth, blanket. Then you can see, now it is ready, doctor. $5 more or we'll leave it here. What means some suspicion is there. Now they said, now it is ready, doctor. Give us $5 more. Otherwise we'll leave it here. Means doctor साथ में आया है इस body को लेकर के. There is some business between them that they will give this body to the doctor and he had to pay $5 more. Otherwise they will leave the body here only. But doctor says, what do you mean? I already paid you. So there is a deal. वो बोला कि मैंने तो पहले से ही पे कर दिए हैं. Now, Injun Joe shook his fist threateningly in the doctor's face. The doctor suddenly hit out and Injun Joe fell to the ground. अब क्या हुआ? Injun Joe और डॉक्टर में झगड़ा हो गया. डॉक्टर ने Injun Joe ने जोर से डॉक्टर के फेस पे मुक्का मारा and डॉक्टर ने hit back किया उसको और Injun Joe he fell on the ground. Now Potter jumped to the doctor and they began to fight. Now the third man Potter जो है ये भी डॉक्टर पे jump किया and they began to fight. Injun Joe snatched up Potter's knife. अब Injun Joe ने क्या किया? फटाफट से मौका देख के Potter का knife छीन लिया and circled the men, waiting for a chance to strike at the doctor with it. अब उनके आसपास घूमने लगा and he was waiting for a chance to kill the doctor. See, suddenly the doctor pulled himself free. He picked up a heavy tombstone and knocked Potter out. एकदम से क्या किया? डॉक्टर ने क्या किया? अपने आप को छुड़ा करके एक हेवी tombstone उठाया और पॉटर को मार दिया. Then you can see here, Injun Joe leapt forward. Injun Joe थोड़ा आगे हुआ and drove his knife into the doctor's chest. अब Injun Joe ने आगे होकर नाइफ जोर से डॉक्टर की चेस्ट में मार दिया. He fell on Potter. अब वो पॉटर के ऊपर गिर गया, spattering him with blood. उसको ब्लड से, अपने ब्लड से उसको भर दिया. Now just then the moon was hidden by clouds and the two petrified boys saw their chance and fled for their lives. अब एकदम से क्या हुआ? Clouds आ गए moon के आगे and it became dark and the boys, the frightened boys, they got a chance to run away from there. Now what happened? Injun Joe looked down at the two men. The doctor groaned, gave a long gasp and died. अब इंजन जो दोनों को देख रहा है, डॉक्टर ने थोड़ा पेन की वजह से ही ग्रोन्ड, थोड़ी दर्द भरी आवाज निकाली, and took a long breath and died. इंजन जो knelt down and robbed the still form. अब इंजन जो ने क्या किया देखा? rob the still form means डॉक्टर के पास जो भी था, he robbed it, उसको उसके अंदर से उसके पास से चुरा लिया, and then he put the knife into Potter's hand. नाइफ फटाफट से क्या किया? पॉटर के हैंड में डाल दिया. Potter began to stir. पॉटर हिलने लगा. He opened his eyes and saw the knife in his hand. अब उसने eyes open की and he saw, उसने देखा कि नाइफ मेरे हैंड में है. He was drunk, so terrified he let it fall. एकदम से उसने नाइफ को गिरा दिया. And then he sat up, pushing the dead man away from him. अब उसने देखा उसके ऊपर डॉक्टर गिरे हुए हैं, तो उसने डॉक्टर को एकदम दूर फेंका, नाइफ को भी फेंक दिया. How did it happen? He asked इंजन जो. इंजन जो को पूछा ये कैसे हुआ? Now इंजन जो, he is telling a lie. He said, you were so drunk, you got into a fight with the doctor. He hit you with the headboard and you staggered up and stuck you knife into him. इंजन जो told him, इंजन जो बोले कि डॉक्टर तुमने इतनी पी रखी थी, ठीक है, तुम्हारी डॉक्टर के साथ फाइट हो गई, उसने तुम्हें हिट किया और तुमने उसको नाइफ से मार दिया. Don't say that, Joe, said Porter. But Injun Joe convinced Porter that he had killed the doctor, and the poor man begged him not to tell anyone about it. अब इंजन जो बोल रहा है, पॉटर बोलता है डोंट से दैट, ऐसा मत कहो. बट इंजन जो उसको कन्विंस कर देता है कि यू ओनली हैव किल्ड द डॉक्टर. एंड नाउ द पुअर पॉटर, ही इज बेगिंग हिम नॉट टू टेल इट टू एनीवन, किसी को बताना मत कि मैंने इसको मार दिया. ऑलराइट पोटर, आई वोंट. Now go your way and I will go mine, said Injun Joe. अब बोला ठीक है, मैं नहीं बताऊंगा पोटर, तुम जाओ और मैं भी चला जाता हूँ. The two men left the graveyard, and all that remained of the dark drama was the murdered man, the corpse in the barrow, and the open coffin and grave. Silence settled over the graveyard once again. अब दोनों आदमी चले जाते हैं, and remaining और अंधेरे में क्या रह जाता है वहाँ पर? एक murdered man means a doctor, corpse in the barrow, barrow के अंदर जो डेड बॉडी उन्होंने निकाली थी वो पड़ी है, and the open coffin पड़ा है वहाँ पर, and the grave is there, and again the graveyard is filled with silence. Now we come to the seventh episode of the novel, that is the pact. Pact is असर क्या हुआ. The two boys raced towards the village. Looking over their shoulders fearfully, they made for the old tannery and reached it, panting and gasping for breath. Means वो भागे, बहुत जोर से भागे विलेज में, जब तक कि उनको लगा कि हम ग्रेवयार्ड से बहुत दूर नहीं आ गए हैं. और वहाँ पर वो they were panting and they were taking heavy breaths. थके हुए थे. Now रुक गए. Hucky, what will happen now? Tom asked when he speak at last. जब वो बोल पाया, वो बोला, Hucky, now what will happen? If Dr. Robinson dies, there will be a hanging. Huck answered. The boys realized that they were the only witness to the crime. Only they knew Injun Joe had killed the doctor, and if he ever found that out, Injun Joe would kill them. Now they are just talking about Dr. Robinson. Now they are saying if Robinson dies, then somebody will be hanged. किसी को तो फांसी मिलेगी. And they said कि we are only the witness, हमने सिर्फ क्राइम होते हुए देखा है, और अगर इंजन, और हमें ही पता है कि इंजन जो ने मारा है, और अगर हमने किसी को बता दिया तो इंजन जो will kill us. Now we must keep absolutely quiet about this storm. Injun Joe would make no more of drowning us than a couple of cats if we were in the squeal. And they didn't hang him, said Huck. Means they decide कि we will keep quiet, because if we tell it to anyone, then Injun Joe will kill us like the couple of cats. In keeping with their surroundings and circumstances that were dark and awful, the two wrote a solemn oath on a pine shingle. अब क्या हुआ कि सराउंडिंग्स में एकदम शांति थी. अब दोनों ने एक पाइन का लीफ लेकर के उसके ऊपर लिखा, Huck Finn and Tom Sawyer swear that they will keep mum about this, and they wish they may drop down dead in their tracks if they ever tell and rot. So they take an oath. ओथ लेते हैं कि हम कभी भी किसी को नहीं बताएंगे इसके बारे में. और and they wish they may drop down dead in their tracks if they ever tell and rot. कहते अगर हम किसी को भी कुछ बताएंगे तो हम मारे जाएंगे. Then they pricked their thumbs and wrote their initials in blood. अब क्या किया उन्होंने, थम्स उठाए और अपना इनिशियल्स इन सिग्नेचर कर दिए ब्लड के साथ. The shingle was buried near the well with the all sorts of chants and ceremonies. अब उन्होंने क्या किया, शिंगल को वहाँ पर वेल के नीचे, वेल के पास में दबा दिया. When Tom crept up to his room, his night was almost over. He congratulated himself that his absence had not been noticed. What he did not know was that Sid had been awake for an hour and had seen him. अब टॉम जब वापस आया अपने रूम में, रात ख़त्म हो चुकी थी, and he himself congratulated himself that मेरे बारे में किसी में मैं हाथ नहीं था, किसी को पता नहीं चला. बट उसको पता नहीं था कि सिड 1 घंटे से जगा हुआ था और उसको पता चल चुका था कि टॉम वॉज नॉट देयर इन द रूम, and he had seen him coming inside. When Tom awoke, Sid was dressed and gone. Tom wondered with foreboding why he had not been called as usual. अब जब वो उठा टॉम, सिड अपना ड्रेस चेंज करके वहाँ से जा चुका था. टॉम सोच रहा है कि क्यों नहीं मुझे हमेशा की तरह उठाया गया. He dressed hastily and came downstairs to find the others still at breakfast. अब वो फटाफट से तैयार होता है और नीचे आता है और देखता है कि ब्रेकफास्ट टेबल पर सब लोग बैठे हुए हैं. No one spoke a word and Tom's heart sank down to the depths. किसी ने एक भी वर्ड नहीं बोला और टॉम को डर लग रहा था. After breakfast, his aunt wept and said, It was no use trying any more with him, for he was bent on ruining himself and breaking her old heart. अब आंट कहती हैं, आंट क्राइज, वो रोती हैं और कहती हैं कि कोई यूज़ ही नहीं है तुम्हें कुछ समझाने का, बिकॉज यू आर स्पॉइलिंग योरसेल्फ, और मेरे को भी बहुत परेशान कर रहे हो. टॉम begged for forgiveness and went sadly to school. अब टॉम सॉरी बोलता है और स्कूल चला जाता है. He sat dejectedly at his desk and discovered that Becky had returned his brass knob. अब जब वो स्कूल जाता है, उदासी से बैठा होता है, एंड इतने में क्या होता है, बेकी आकर के उसको उसका ब्रास नॉब वापस कर देती है जो इसने उसको दिया था. His heart nearly broke with sorrow. अब इसका दिल बिल्कुल ही टूट जाता है. Now, the dreadful secret. By noon, the news of the murder was all over the village. The schoolmaster gave the children a holiday for the afternoon. अब क्या होता है कि दोपहर तक सब जगह फैल जाती है न्यूज़ मर्डर की, and there was a holiday was declared for the afternoon. Everyone was drifting towards the cemetery. Tom's heartbreak vanished and he joined the procession. अब हर कोई कहाँ जा रहा है, ग्रेवयार्ड की तरफ जा रहा है, cemetery's graveyard, और टॉम का हार्ट ब्रेक जो है वो वैनिश हो गया और वो भी प्रोसेशन के साथ चला जा रहा है, क्योंकि बेकी वाली बात तो वो भूल गया है. नाउ ही इज गोइंग टू द cemetery or graveyard along with the procession. He wormed his way to the front of the crowd when they arrived at the site of the murder. वो फटाफट से वो खुद ही आगे सबके आगे चल के जा रहा है, and he arrived at the site of the murder. Somebody pinched his arm. किसी ने पीछे से उसको आर्म पे पिंच किया. The boys were terrified as they heard Injun Joe lie to the sheriff and say how he had seen Muff Potter stab the doctor in the drunken rage. So, boys तो डरे हुए थे. Now, बॉयज ऑलरेडी डरे हुए थे और भी ज़्यादा डर गए जब उन्होंने सुना कि इंजन जो वॉज टेलिंग अ लाई टू द शेरिफ. शेरिफ कौन होता है? द counselor, or the, you can say, the judge there. And now he told a lie that Muff Potter had stabbed the doctor. उसने डॉक्टर को मार दिया when he was drunk. Only they knew the truth, that an innocent man had been caught. अब उनको सिर्फ सच पता था. The fearful secret lay heavy on Tom's mind and disturbed his sleep night after night. So the secret was there in his mind, and now he could not sleep. Then one morning Sid complained to Aunt Polly that Tom's groans and sleep talking kept him awake half the night. So, like रात को भी he is not able to sleep. So Sid complained to Aunt Polly that the whole night Tom groans and he just speaks while sleeping. She questioned Tom, but all he said was nothing. It's nothing at all. Now Aunt Polly asked Tom, "What's the matter?" But he said nothing. It's nothing. That's not so. Last night you said it's blood again and again, and that you would tell someone something. So आंट ने पूछा कि रात को तुम बोल रहे थे कि इट्स ब्लड अगेन एंड अगेन, ब्लड के बारे में बोल रहे थे, एंड यू वर सेइंग दैट यू विल टेल समबडी. This made Aunt Polly think that the murder of the doctor was giving Tom nightmares. अब Aunt Polly को लगा कि जो डॉक्टर के मर्डर की वजह से ये डरा हुआ है और रात को डरावने सपने देखता है. Nightmares are the डरावने सपने. Tom agreed hastily, though Sid suspected Tom was hiding something. टॉम ने बोला हाँ 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 इसीलिए मुझे डरावने सपने आते हैं, बट सिड को लगा नहीं कुछ और बात है. ही इज हाइडिंग समथिंग, कुछ छुपा रहा है ये. टॉम फेल्ट गिल्टी अबाउट द इनोसेंट पॉटर इन जेल. Whenever he could, he went to the jail window and smuggled in small gifts to the prisoner. अब टॉम को बहुत बुरा लग रहा है कि इनोसेंट पॉटर जो है वो जेल में है, और जब भी वहाँ से वो निकलता था, जेल के पास से निकलता था, he used to give small gifts to the prisoner. Who's a prisoner? Potter. This eased his guilty conscience a little. अब इससे उसको, उसकी आत्मा को थोड़ी सी शांति मिलती थी कि मैं कुछ तो अच्छा कर रहा हूँ. So children, we stop here, and the next parts I will again share you very soon. Till then, goodbye.